Prices. Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Sinead. Aherne. Today's top stories. Manager of University Hospital Waterford says they're making progress in the right direction when it comes to the cath lab. There's a shortage of protective face masks for sale in Waterford due to fears over coronavirus. Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil are both holding parliamentary party meetings today. And in sport, Jack O'Donoghu's named in the Munster team for tomorrow's Pro 14 clash against the Southern Kings. The second cath lab at University Hospital Waterford's at the detailed design stage at the moment. The HSE intend to increase the emergency PPCI service to an 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. service 7 days a week. This will require the recruitment of additional staff. General Manager Grace Rothwell says they're making progress in the right direction.
The next phase will be to move towards 8 to 8, and then beyond that, which will be the next phase, would be to move towards 24/7. The funding is in place for the second cath lab, and we're at the detailed design stage for that at the moment. From my perspective, progress has been made. I know others may well say, but it's not fast enough. But there's a lot of other services in this hospital, including cancer, orthopaedics, neurology, urology, all of which require some focus and attention and support to develop themselves.
She says it's impossible to give a time frame at the moment.
Once we've the timelines for the second cath lab pretty much defined and on paper, we'll work out a timeline in terms of what are the stages involved there, what do we need to do by X date and by X date and what staff numbers, and work again, as I keep saying, collaboratively with the group and with the HSE centrally and indeed the Department of Health to make those things happen. So what I'm saying is we'll probably plot out a series of milestones that we have to achieve, and when you hit that first milestone you can look then towards the next one.
The Health Minister is meeting with his EU counterparts as part of an emergency coronavirus meeting. The European Commission's given assurances that it's working on all fronts to tackle the outbreak, as Casey O'Riordan reports.
Health Minister Simon Harris is in Brussels today, meeting with the EU Health Commissioner and European Health Ministers to discuss the escalating issue of the coronavirus. Speaking beforehand, Minister Harris outlines the aim of the emergency meeting.
I suppose to share information, to collaborate and to see how Europe can work in an even more coordinated fashion to protect the European Union from the coronavirus.
It comes as China says the virus has infected about 60,000 people and killed more than 1,300. Meanwhile, Irishman Ben Kavanagh, who's been held in quarantine near Liverpool since returning from Wuhan in China 2 weeks ago, is due to be released today.
Oh yeah, everyone handled it very well. Both the Irish and English governments did a great job, and I was really thankful there was a quarantine, because at first it was just a bit of a panic, but everything got sorted in the end.
A number of events have been impacted by the outbreak, with Rugby Union's World 7 series moving rounds from April to October, while rapper Stormzy has decided to postpone the Asian leg of his world tour.
Meanwhile, a Waterford pharmacist says chemists all over Ireland have sold out of protective face masks. There was a rush on the surgical masks following the outbreak of the coronavirus in China. Brian Tynans from Whelan's Pharmacy on Michael Street in Waterford.
Just purely on the back of kind of between, I say, social media panic and just general reporting in the press, there would have been a massive rush about 2 weeks ago with people trying to get their hands on some face masks. So there would have been a quite easy availability at the time for everyone in the general public, but because of the rush on them, what was actually happening was a lot of people were kind of buying them and sending them out to China for kind of very family members, etc. So unfortunately, the stocks have run out in the country for general retail sale at the moment.
He says it'll be several weeks before they're available for sale again.
There are orders in place to kind of try and get them back into the country. I think the current kind of lead time to kind of get them back in through general wholesale into pharmacies is about 4 to 5 weeks at the moment. The HSE are telling us that they have a kind of stockpile ready for doomsday scenarios, that they will actually be able to get them out into pharmacies, but currently for retail sales-wise, they're unavailable.
Fianna Fáil's parliamentary parties meeting to discuss the fallout from the weekend's election, while Sinn Féin continues to meet with smaller parties in a bid to form a left-wing government. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe's at Leinster House.
Just early talks. Just exploring things.
The Social Democrat co-leaders arriving for a series of meetings, first with Mayor Lou MacDonald, as parties continue to suss each other out. The Sinn Féin leader put more pressure on Fianna Fáil this morning, saying the party needs to decide if it's going to back the change that people voted for.
Our objective is a government of change. And the question that arises is this:
Will Fianna Fáil sign up for that kind of change?
Fianna Fáil's parliamentary party is meeting at the moment in Leinster House in what's expected to be a tense discussion about what went wrong in the election and whether or not to do business with Sinn Féin. New TD Cormac Devlin and frontbencher Mark McSharry spoke on arrival.
We were very emphatic in advance of the general election that's something that we'd ruled out. And that's something that I think that the party should certainly continue to stand by.
We listen to all personal views and arrive at a consensus position.
Is there a question over Micheál Martin's leadership?
Definitely not.
Some in the party are dead against working with Sinn Féin, others see it as the real politique in the light of the election results. Sean Defoe, Leinster House.
Meanwhile, Waterford Sinn Féin TD David Cullinane has joined his party's negotiating team. He made the announcement as he signed the role at Leinster House and formally accepted his seat as the TD for the Waterford constituency. Deputy Cullinane says as a member of the negotiating team, the hard work starts now on preparing for government and delivering change. A Waterford Labour councillor says there is a number of good candidates to contest the party leadership. Brendan Whelan announced yesterday he's to step aside as leader and a contest will now get underway. Seamus Ryan says the party needs to be reinvigorated.
We've had two young candidates elected and then we have the experience of Alan Kelly as well. So, people like Jed Nash and Duncan Smith and Alan Kelly, these are all well-capable candidates that could lead and maybe reinvigorate the Labour Party, and that's what we need now. And I would just want to pay tribute and take this opportunity to pay tribute to Brendan Howland, who put all his life into the trade union movement and into the Labour Party. At a time, even in the last government, at a time when it wasn't popular to be leader of the Labour Party, he stepped up to the plate.
The Northern Ireland Secretary has become the first person to be sacked from the British Prime Minister's cabinet. Julian Smith will return to the government backbenches despite helping to restore power sharing at Stormont. Boris Johnson has also removed Andrea Leadsom as Business Secretary as well as Environment Secretary Theresa Villiers. 6 cars and over €20,000 have been seized by the Criminal Assets Bureau. It was during an operation in Cork and Tipperary, as well as cars and cash. Gardaí also seized 2 designer bags, a Rolex watch, cocaine, cannabis, mobile phones and financial records. A community first responder group's being set up in Waterford to assist the National Ambulance Service. The group of volunteers who have first aid training will respond to certain emergency calls in the city. Derek and Sharon Burke of Waterford First Responders told Damien Tiernan on Daisha today how it'll work.
So as we know, the ambulance service do an amazing job, but if they get a call and say, for example, they're in Ferrybank and a cardiac arrest or a stroke comes in Viewmount, the idea behind it is that hopefully we will be closer and we can get there and we can get hands on a patient straight away, so we can give them every chance.
Everybody's trained to the same standard. We have people from different backgrounds. As you know, an advanced paramedic myself, we bring everybody up to the same level, so everybody can respond exactly the same way, so there's no variation in it, and everybody's given extreme tight guidelines on what they can do and what they can't do.
And a pilot programme for small and medium-sized enterprises are being launched in Waterford City tomorrow. The Thinking Ahead Through Design initiative is being run by Enterprise Ireland and takes place at the Tower Hotel. Stephen Hughes is manager of the Consumer Department at Enterprise Ireland and says businesses who invest in design do better than those who don't.
Here in Ireland, heretofore, we hadn't prioritised enough time and enough resource in raising the design agenda in SMEs. And our programme that we're launching in Waterford on Friday is the first time ever that Enterprise Ireland will have launched a programme solely focused on companies and their design agenda.
WLR Sport.
With thanks to the Waterford Viking Marathon. Register now at waterfordvikingmarathon.com.
And a very good afternoon, I'm Gavin Whelan, starting with rugby, and flanker John Hodnett will make his Munster debut in their Guinness Pro 14 match against the Southern Kings tomorrow evening. A Grand Slam winner with the Ireland under-20s last season, he's been selected in a back row which includes Waterford's Jack O'Donoghue and Aherne Botha. Chris Farrell joins Dan Goggin in midfield with JJ Hanrahan selected at out half for the game at Cork's Irish Independent Park, having been knocked out of Europe last month. John Ryan, the Irish international front row, says all their focus is now on trying to win the Pro 14.
We've got probably, if you think, the advantage of having the opportunity to focus mainly on the league, which I know it's not a position you want to be, but it's something we can take advantage of rather than be licking our wounds. So that's the way we're going to look at it.
Next to news of soccer, and Brian Murphy has signed for Waterford FC. The former goalkeeper will be joining the Blues. The 36-year-old is the latest player to put pen to paper with Alan Reynolds' side ahead of the start of the new season, which kicks off tomorrow night. The Blues entertain St Patrick's Athletic in the Airtricity League Premier Division. The Waterford native last played in the League of Ireland back in 2009. Graham Cummins is another Blues player who's expected to have a big impact this season. He spoke to WLR Sport during the week, and he says he was impressed by St Pat's when Shamrock Rovers played them last season.
Yeah, I think in this league it's always important to get a good start. No matter who you are in the league, whether you're Dundalk, whether you're Waterford, whether you're Finn Harps, Pats have assembled a very good squad and they'll be expected to push really on in the league this year. I think Stevie is a good manager. I remember when we played him with Rovers towards the end of the year, I was very impressed with him, and I think he's brought in a lot of his own players now, so I think they'll be expecting a big crowd probably up there that night, and their fans will be expecting a lot of success this year.
Next news of, and just to say, we will of course be broadcasting that game live on WLR tomorrow evening, all thanks to Clem Jacob Hire. I'll be joining Matt Keane in the commentary box with coverage getting underway at 7:30. In athletics, at the Athlone International Grand Prix last evening, Waterford's Thomas Barr ran a fine race in the 400 metres flat, finishing a close third in a personal best there of 46.44 seconds. His old time was 46.85. The Ferrybank native will be delighted with this and hoping to transfer it onto his 400 metre hurdles form later this year as he prepares for the Olympics. Gaelic Games, two unbeaten sides will lock horns at the Gaelic grounds on Saturday evening as Waterford and Limerick do battle in round 3 of the Alliance Hurling League. It's a repeat of last year's league final where the Shannonsiders narrowly came out on top in Croke Park. They also inflicted a big defeat on Waterford in last year's Munster Championship, but the Daisha under new manager Liam Cahill will be going in confident, having defeated Cork and Westmeath in the opening 2 rounds. Throw-in at the LIT Gaelic grounds is at 7. WLR will broadcast the game live thanks to George Corbett-Skoda with Kieran O'Connor and Owen Murphy, your commentary team for that one. And in golf, finally, Rory McIlroy plays his first tournament since reclaiming golf's world number 1 ranking this afternoon. He's in a group with Patrick Cantley and Dustin Johnson on the opening day of PGA Tour's Genesis Open in California. On the local front, Aina Griffin is continuing this afternoon. He's in action in the Portuguese International Championship at the Montado Golf Resort in Portugal. Robin Dawson recorded 11 par, meanwhile, round on day 1 of the Dimension Data Pro-Am in South Africa this morning. That score has him at 70th on the leaderboard. Sports news on WLR with thanks to Waterford Viking Marathon.